Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Be Smart, Be Savvy, Understanding Financial Aid, Billing, and Academic Records. This is part of Alumni and Parents Weekend, and hopefully everyone has had a terrific Friday so far, and you've gotten a chance to check out a few of our other sessions throughout the day, and we'll continue to do so for the rest of the weekend. Quick introduction, my name is Miguel Silva, and I'm a student link counselor here at NYU. I'm joined today by my colleague, Neil Salam, our Senior Operations Manager, who is also here on hand to help out with today's presentation. So let's not waste any time, let's get started. And a quick introduction to what the Student Link Center is. NYU Student Link Center is a comprehensive student services center that features cross-trained professionals in a number of service areas. And our aim is to really offer your students and you as parents accurate, courteous, and efficient services in the service areas that we work with. So financial aid, billing and payments, academic records, financial education, global services, all of these areas, including global programs, which is our study away programs, fall under our one central office that we can assist students in all of these areas instead of asking the different offices their questions multiple times. Just ask one person and we'll be able to answer those questions as best we can. This is really important to highlight, and I want to bring it to your attention because these areas are interrelated, and that's why the Student Link Center was created just a few years ago to offer students a holistic approach to their experience here at NYU. I want to emphasize that you as parents and other systems of support are really our partners in this. We're working together to ensure that your student can be successful here at NYU towards graduation. Now, I want to point out that studies have really shown that parental involvement in students' education tends to correlate with higher GPA. So the more involved you are in offering academic advice and the more information you have to offer that advice, you'll usually see that your students will achieve higher. So with that said, there's a number of topics that we want to cover today. You'll see them listed right there on the slide, and I don't want to waste too much time because I know you'll have questions. But again, if you didn't hear me in the beginning, I do want to just ask that you hold off on any questions that may come up towards the end of the session. And please use the polls feature of the platform to submit your questions. If you have any sort of technical issues that come up, feel free to use the chat and we'll be able to troubleshoot that for you. So let's get started with COVID-19 and NYU's response to the pandemic. The NYU Returns Hub is really your one-stop shop for everything NYU and COVID-19 related. This semester and the upcoming semesters are really being, they're different. So the university has put together this hub with information regarding testing, classroom space, dining, residential life. All of that is on NYU Returns, so please check that out as well. StudentLink has been fielding student questions regarding the NYU Returns process via our email at studentlink@nyu.edu. And parents, you have a great resource with the Parent Helpline. Our colleagues at the Center for Student Life really do a terrific job with ensuring that there's open communication with parents and that you can ask your questions whenever you may have them. That's parents@nyu.edu, and their phone number is 212-998-4219. Now, the university has also put together a testing data dashboard, which allows you to take a look and see how the university is doing with our testing program and with any active cases. So you're always made aware of what is happening here on campus in New York. I also want to point out, and we'll touch a bit later on, touch a bit more on this a bit later, regarding Thanksgiving travel. The university a few weeks ago sent out an email to all students, really encouraging them that if they are planning to go home for the Thanksgiving recess, to stay home and finish off the semester remotely. At the point that they return back from Thanksgiving recess, there's just a couple of weeks left in the semester, and with the ongoing travel restrictions that the state has imposed to a number of residents from outside of New York, there may be a quarantine imposed, so it really is best that if at all possible that students complete their semester remotely at home and gives them more time to be with you. With that said, let's move on to financial aid and the FAFSA. 2021-2022 FAFSA is now available on studentaid.gov. became available as of October 1st. And NYU really recommends that you all file this by May 1st of the upcoming year. Now I know, and we hear this all the time, that the FAFSA can really seem daunting in order to complete. But as long as you follow a few simple steps that we're going to offer, it's really going to make the process a whole lot smoother. So again, make sure that the FAFSA is filed by the May 1st suggested deadline. That way we can ensure that any financial aid is awarded and ready for the billing period. The FAFSA is required for federal aid consideration. So think of Pell Grants, work study, Stafford loans. All of this requires the FAFSA. So it's really important that that gets completed in a timely fashion. You'll be using the 2019 tax returns to complete that FAFSA. And to make your life easier, we really suggest that you use the data retrieval tool. So this allows you to connect to the IRS securely and pull that information into the FAFSA. That way you're not manually entering those numbers, which can lead to errors and is just more time consuming. Now, sometimes the data retrieval tool doesn't work or is not an option, but you can still follow along with the FAFSA. It'll usually tell you, say for question number 45, reference line 23 on your 1040 and input that number. So there is step-by-step guides when you're completing the FAFSA, so be on the lookout for that. And the studentaid.gov website has just recently been revamped, and it's a lot more streamlined and user-friendly. So I really am hopeful that you'll be able to use that as a resource. Some other tips for the FAFSA: you want to file early in order to be considered for federal work-study programs, and also in case your student is selected for a process called verification. Now, the Department of Education requires that NYU randomly verify a number of students to ensure that their FAFSA is accurate. So if you do this on time, it'll give you ample time to obtain the necessary documents, to complete that verification process, and to ensure that there's no hiccups. Now, some outside scholarships may also require the FAFSA to be completed in order to have the need analysis done. So it's really important to speak with your student and work together to complete the FAFSA to ensure that there's no hiccups in aid. Now, in terms of scholarship aid, I do want to point out that the CSS profile, and we get this question a lot, does not need to be refiled. The CSS profile is only completed once, and that's to allow the university to determine the scholarship amounts that we are able to offer. With that said, NYU does offer the best scholarship possible at the time of admission, and there are no appeals to this. With the slight exception, if you will, of something that is called the Returning Undergraduate Appeal. Students can apply for this appeal through their Albert account. There's a little financial aid appeal button right on there, and it allows the financial aid office to review for small, non-renewable scholarship adjustments for a particular semester. So right now, financial aid is reviewing for the spring semester. So we definitely encourage your student to look at that option and complete the appeal to be considered. External scholarships are also a really great way to complement any other forms of aid. And NYU iGrad is a great resource to start looking for external scholarships. All students have access to NYU iGrad free of charge, and it's a really comprehensive financial literacy tool, and part of it is that scholarship search. And like I mentioned earlier, the FAFSA may be needed for some of these scholarships, so be sure to have that handy as well. So let's talk about the pass-fail option now. So students have the option to pass-fail a class. This means that they'll receive a grade of either P or F instead of the traditional letter grade. Now, you're asking, why would a student want to pass-fail? Well, they may be trying out a new field of study that they're not too familiar with, or they're not particularly strong in a subject area, but they feel that they can at least pass and would prefer to pass-fail a class instead of having a P instead of, say, a C or a D. So this is a really terrific option for students who are a little unsure of how they're doing in their subject areas. Keep in mind that a passing grade of P does not impact GPA, but a failing grade of an F will negatively impact GPA. The deadline for all schools at the university has been extended this semester to November 30th. So you have a bit over a month for students to be able to seek that option. As always, students should always be checking with their academic advisor about school-specific policies and whether the pass-fail option is really ideal for their specific situation. Now, with that said, withdrawing from courses. Sometimes classes are simply just a little too difficult for students or just not the right match, and it happens. And you as a parent can really be a great resource and support for your student. You want to really always encourage your student if they feel that they're not doing well in a course and that they're at risk of failing to reach out to the faculty. Suggest a meeting for office hours or taking advantage of the university's tutoring services through the University Learning Center, and also reaching out to our colleagues at the Office of Student Success. They can also help connect students with resources. So the withdrawal option is certainly there, and it may be better than failing a course entirely. And while us at StudentLink, we don't necessarily encourage or discourage students from withdrawing from courses, we're really here to talk students through the process and to make sure that you as parents and other systems of support and mentors have that knowledge to be able to assist your student and guide them through that conversation and have a really good dialogue with that. So it's really important to know about a number of impacts that withdrawing from courses has. So withdrawing from a course will result in a W grade for a particular course, which does get printed on the official university transcript. This does not, however, impact GPA, but will impact earned credits. And now this is important because the amount of earned credits can impact financial aid. So a negatively impacted earned credit amount will have a negative effect on the satisfactory academic progress. So generally, students need to maintain a 2.0 GPA and pass about 67% of credits that they attempt. So that W will impact that earned credit ratio. It's really important to remember that federal and NYU aid can be impacted and affected by SAP. Now, academics as well, of course, receiving a W grade, students may need to repeat a course if it is a necessary class for their major. And these policies do vary by school. So students really always want to check in with their school to see if the W grade will impact degree progress and time to graduation. So have all these things in mind. A few other notes that we want to make is immigration concerns. For our international students, it's really important that you know that for the most part, you'll need to maintain full-time status or have approval from the Office of Global Services to enroll in a reduced course load. So international students should always be in touch with OGS before withdrawing to ensure that there's no hiccups in immigration status. And as always, and this will be a recurring theme, please encourage your student to reach out to their academic advisor to have a conversation about how classes are going before making that final decision to withdraw. Advisors can oftentimes offer alternatives and should always be in the loop in the decision-making process to better assist your student in the long run. So this is where you as parents really come in and are able to help. As systems of support, your student will almost always take cues from you. So be open to those difficult conversations in order to alleviate pressure and stress that this process can have on students. You always want to help identify if withdrawing is really the best option for them, given their situation. Currently, the deadline is the same as the pass-fail deadline, and that is November 30th. So let's talk about registration now. So spring registration for the spring 2021 semester begins December 7th, and this is by enrollment appointment. So appointments are assigned to students based on the credits that they've earned. And it's really important to stress, and we get this question a lot from students and sometimes even parents, these appointments cannot be changed. So sometimes students will have a class at the time that their enrollment appointment begins, or be away, working, what have you. It's important to remind them that this is when the appointment slot opens. It doesn't have to be done right then immediately. Obviously, students always want to try and do it as soon as possible to ensure that they're able to enroll in classes that they want. So it's important to speak with academic advisors to ensure that students are taking classes towards their degree, to ensure that they're able to maintain financial aid eligibility, and to ensure that they're on track to graduate. I also want to point out that spreading out hard classes is a really good technique. So sometimes students are required to take 3 or 4 classes that they know it's going to challenge them, right? So encouraging your student to, hey, why don't you take one of these hard classes per semester, spread them out. That way, the semester as a whole won't be as challenging. As part of registration, it's really important that students be aware of any holds on their Albert account that may prevent registration. Oftentimes we'll see past due balances preventing students from registering. And that's where we ask you as parents to have open conversations with your student as to how best to cover the balance and to ensure that students are able to register. Nearly all students will also be required to be cleared by their academic advising units in order to successfully register through the system. So if you at any point or your student at any point has any questions or concerns regarding these holds that may prevent registration, have them come and speak with us at StudentLink. We're really, that's what we're here for, is to look at the whole picture and see how can we get you to register and what steps do you need to take in order to do so. So how does one register? Students will begin by adding classes to what is called their shopping cart. And you can add as many things as you want to your shopping cart, and then you have Albert validate them for you. It'll essentially run as if you were going to register, and then students will be told if there's any sort of conflicts preventing that will cause an issue once registration actually comes up. Conflicts can include time conflicts, prerequisites, or something that you really want to encourage your student to think about now is if they're taking an in-person class in New York, right? And also have a Zoom class, a remote learning class 15 minutes later. How will they be able to manage that? The university has set up a number of study and remote learning spaces on campus for students to do that, but it's important that they're aware of the modality of the class instruction as well. And a backup plan. A backup plan is very, very important. Classes do oftentimes fill up quickly and students get heartbroken, but it's important to have alternatives in order to mitigate this. So having alternative dates and times for a desired course, if there's multiple sessions being offered, or having alternative courses altogether to ensure that students have different options that will still satisfy any sort of degree requirements. I also want to point out that most classes have a waitlist option, so encourage students to use this option to at least hold their place in case one of their peers that ends up being enrolled in the class ends up withdrawing, they'll be added to the class automatically. So let's discuss payment dates and methods. So I want to point out a few key dates. So for the J-term semester, and I do want to just note that J-term is an optional semester that students can enroll in. The billing date is November 10th. The payment due date will be December 1st. For the spring semester, the spring 2021 semester, excuse me, the billing date is December 14th. So students will be issued their statements of account for the spring on December 14th, and payment is due January 7th of 2021. There's a number of payment methods that you as parents can use if you'll be assisting your student with that. In-person is still an option. Our centers are open with reduced capacity for cash, check, and money order payments, but we really do want to encourage you to make use of our online payment system through eSuite. You'll be able to use an electronic check. All that means is you'll need the routing and account number of a checking account here that is based in the United States to make that payment. Students can either make that payment on their own through their own eSuite account, or they can grant you authorized user access so that you are able to do this as well. And we'll get into a bit more of this in just a bit. For our international students, We offer a number of services that the university partners with in order to accommodate payments from outside the United States. Those are Flywire and Western Union Global Pay. Both are secure and allow us as the university and you as the one paying to track any sort of payments that are made from outside the US. The university also does have a few payment plan options, and I've noted here on the screen the key dates for the spring 2021 semester for our two more popular payment plans, if you will. The deferred payment plan is administered with NYU directly and breaks the payment after any sort of financial aid is applied into three payments, if you will, and a down payment, excuse me, of 50% due at the time of enrolling in the plan, and then 2 subsequent installments. And the tuition management systems allows you to finance a set amount that you determine into 4 equal payments. And I just want to make a quick announcement. If you have any questions that may be coming up as I'm speaking, feel free to write them down in the poll section. Once we get closer to our Q&A section, that way we can take it from there and answer them for you. So refunds, a quick note on refunds. The direct deposit is the quickest, easiest, and most secure way to issue refunds to students. And I really emphasize that students enroll in this now, not when they've already been issued a refund. Now, even if they're not expecting one, that way if one is needed, it'll be set and ready to go. So student refunds are defaulted to be mailed in the form of a check. That's why, with the mail, things can get lost, slows it down a bit. Really encourage your student to enroll in direct deposit through their eSuite account. Plus loan refunds. A number of parents take out plus loans for their students, and any refunds issued due to excess plus loan funds will be issued to parents directly via a physical check in the mail. You as the parent can authorize your student to receive the refund instead of you, and there's a quick form online on the NYU website to authorize this, and this is done yearly. And we'll note in just a bit, a great resource that you'll be able to find all of this information, all these forms that I'm referencing. Returning loan funds. So students and parents have 120 days to return loan funds that they've borrowed. So think to yourself, as we get closer to the end of the semester, are there any educational expenses that can be covered by funding that isn't accruing interest? If the answer is yes, really recommend you look into returning at least a portion of borrowed funds, if that's a possibility for you, to really reduce the debt burden in the long run. This form is available to students directly in their finances section in Albert. It comes pre-populated, and students just really need to sign it and provide their ID. Taking advantage of breaks. Now, the upcoming Thanksgiving recess and the winter recess are great opportunities to check in with your student and see how they're doing academically. Like we mentioned earlier, students oftentimes take cues from their parental figures or their mentors or their other systems of support. So be open to conversations that you may not be expecting. Students may want to change their major. So really be open to this so that they can pursue their academic interests. Oftentimes programs and majors are very transferable in the workplace, and it broadens the scope of what students want to pursue as a career. Again, I'm going to plug this again. It's a great time to complete the FAFSA. Student will almost certainly need parental tax return information. So when they're home for a break, take a few minutes out of your day. It can take some time, 30 minutes to an hour to complete sometimes, but sit down and do it as soon as possible. That way, get it done and out of the way. You don't have to think about it for the upcoming year. But you also want to speak with your student about managing expenses. How are they doing with their budgeting? If they're here in New York can be a very expensive city. So checking in on how they're managing expenses and really encouraging iGrad. So NYU iGrad, we talked about it earlier with external scholarship searches, but it also allows students to look at budgeting worksheets and learn a lot about building credit, loan repayment if they're ending the nearing the end, excuse me, of their NYU education. And I want to also point out our colleagues at Financial Education. They are able to meet with students one-on-one for coaching sessions on a number of topics. So definitely seek that out and encourage your students to do that so they can start to become a bit more financially independent as well. Discussing family expectations, we covered this a little bit earlier about Thanksgiving travel, right? So if your student plans to come home for Thanksgiving, really encourage them to finish off the semester remotely at home. The provost has really encouraged this in order to reduce the back and forth during the COVID-19 pandemic. But also set expectations for you and your student. Your student, remember, is still a student, even if they're home doing a fully remote semester or just home for a break. They'll oftentimes have assignments ongoing. So set those boundaries and let your student also have the space and opportunity to get their assignments done. Breaks are also a great time to look forward to summer 2021. I know it seems like so far ahead at this point, but now is the time to start thinking, will your student want to pursue an internship or a job? This is a great opportunity to really look and see what summer will look like. The Wasserman Center here at NYU is a terrific resource for students to look for internships or jobs locally here in New York if that's what they want to do. But also NYU offers a number of courses for the summer session. And this is a great opportunity for students to get either caught up on any coursework that they may need. But keep in mind that these classes are oftentimes very condensed and can be very intense for students. So managing that and making sure that students understand that summer classes are not quite like fall and spring classes. They're a lot more intense and more vigorous. And also the financial implications to summer classes. Summer financial aid can vary, and we really encourage students to come and speak with us at StudentLink to discuss their plans for summer so we can give them an idea of what aid may be available to them. Guest user access. I know a lot of parents are probably wondering, how do I get access to information, right? Well, we certainly want to keep you involved and clued in, but the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, better known as FERPA, protects the privacy of your students' education records. So this is oftentimes a very big shift, especially for our first year students and their parents, because parents are used to really taking the charge and being fully aware of what's going on at all times. The law really prohibits NYU administrators from sharing information unless there is consent given by your student. So please note that when parents will come to me and say, I really need to know this about my student. I want to help you. Trust me, I do. I know you have your child's best interests in mind, but understand also that we're doing this to ensure the safety and well-being of your own student. That's not to say there aren't options though. So the consent to disclose student information form, commonly known as a FERPA form, is a mechanism in which students can allow you, a parent, to discuss information on their behalf with NYU administrators, whether it be on the phone or an email or in person. With that said, have a conversation with your student first. Yes, you know what's available to you in order to have access to information, but really have a conversation as to why it's important that you're looped in. So that way you can help them in the long run, be our partner. It's really, it takes a village, right, to ensure that students get through college. So we want to be there to support them. But so explain why having this access might be useful. There's also two online platforms that students can grant you your own login credentials, if you will. That's eSuite, that's the billing and payment portal to view and pay bills, as well as access relevant tax documents, and as well as Albert Guest User Access. So this will allow you to look and see your students' grades, financial aid records, any relevant holds that might be on the account. And with these two, it's really important to note that students can revoke access at any point as well, and they can also pick and choose the level of access that you'll have. So again, really important, have a conversation with your student before just saying, give me access to this, that, the other thing. We've gone over a lot of information in, 30 minutes. Let's talk about an action plan. So you want to work on completing the 2021-2022 FAFSA, and if your student is a New York State resident, the TAP application as well. You want to discuss academic progress with your student when, say, they're home for a recess. If there's any concerns that they may have, be open to these concerns and facilitate the conversation about seeking advice from faculty, from tutoring services, and if necessary, the pass, fail, and withdrawal options that we discussed. You want to ensure that your student is also ready for spring 2020 registration, so including having a plan and ensuring that there's no holds on their account. Discuss upcoming payments for upcoming semesters and any foreseeable concerns that you may have, and also remind students of the iGrad resource for budgeting and external scholarship search. And finally, we just talked about it, talk to your student about guest user access and FERPA release to really convey the message that it's to ensure that they're doing well here at NYU. All this to say, we are here for you and your student every step of the way. We talked about it at the very beginning. StudentLink offers services in financial aid, billing, academic records, financial education, global services, global programs. We are one cohesive team that can really look at your student's record and see how best to assist them with whatever concerns they may have. And if we're not able to answer the question directly, we'll point them in the right direction. So students can book Zoom appointments with us through our website. They can email us at studentlink@nyu.edu and can also currently make in-person appointments in one of our centers in Manhattan or Brooklyn, keeping in mind that there is reduced capacity at those centers. We covered a lot. Maybe you missed something. Totally understandable if you did. Two options for you. I'm going to ask Nilsa if she can just quickly type this, this link in the chat so all of you will have it readily available. It's what I'm calling our digital handout, excuse me. It has everything we listed and went over today in a digital format, so you'll have access to that going forward. Also keep in mind that this session is being recorded, so if you missed anything or want to review anything again, you'll be able to view that shortly after it ends. Before we get into some Q&A, I do want to plug an upcoming event that we have for our first generation students during the first week in November. We have virtual bingo, virtual resource fair with a number of university partners, as well as a virtual student panel. It's going to be a really terrific series of events and engaging and celebrating our first year students, so students who are the first in their family to attend college here in the United States. And even if your student isn't a first generation student, they're of course invited to celebrate and to learn more about resources available to them. One more quick thing, and then I promise we will get to your questions. Let's do a quick survey. I want to gauge how everyone is feeling about the presentation and what your thoughts are so far. So if you can do me a favor and go to pollev.com/Miguel Silva. So just open up a new browser real quickly. I promise this will only take 2 minutes. And Nilsa, if you don't mind, if you can also just throw that in the chat so folks have that easily available. So it's pollev.com/Miguel Silva. We'll take just 2 or so minutes to get your responses on that, get your feedback, and then we'll take it from there. So if you're still doing the poll, or if you haven't even started, please do it. Feel free to continue. But I am going to open this up now to some Q&A. That way we can have time to answer any questions. And Nilsa, I'm going to invite you in now. I know you've been keeping an eye on folks' questions, so take it away.
Okay, so there's some also that came in 2 days ago or before the session, so I'll just include those in really quickly. So someone wants to know how to make FAFSA filling out like simpler. Like how can we make it more painless, I guess.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, the data retrieval tool is such a great way to just seamlessly import not not every part of the FAFSA, but a majority of those numbers, right? I think back to when I was in college and I was doing the FAFSA and I sat down with my dad. It took hours and hours to go get this form. And what is the number on that form? So if you're able to use the data retrieval tool, I really encourage you to use it. Sometimes it can be a little finicky and not link up. Um, but if you're able to really do use the data retrieval tool and do it early, right? Doing it together and doing it early instead of last minute and rushing it will really make the process a lot simpler, I think.
Okay. And how can one get access to students' academic record?
Yeah, so I think we essentially covered that, right? I think that question had come in prior to the session. So if you talk to your student about FERPA form release, as well as eSuite and Albert guest user access, you'll be able to have that discussion with your student, and they'll be able to grant you that access. Again, the digital handout that I discussed earlier, the bit.ly/SLC Parents 2020, a really great resource on there as well. There's further information about that on there.
Okay. Will there be tuition refund if the university decides to go remote, say, in the spring? So I can try to answer that. Unfortunately, I can't tell you. We don't have the information, neither are we the decision makers of whether, there will be tuition refunds or not. Certainly, I know that that's a point of concern for students and parents. So if there is any thing like that would happen where we do have to go remote, the university will make those decisions. But unfortunately, we can't tell you that, and we can't foresee what the future will hold. The plan, though, is that we won't have to go remote, and because going remote unfortunately means that maybe the COVID number goes up, right? The things are not going as well as it should be to maintain or reduce the pandemic. So that's not the hope. We don't want to come to that point that we have to make that decision as a university. So that is still the goal, and that's why there's ongoing testing and other things going on in the university.
Yeah, and
Go ahead. Yeah.
just really quickly, if you do have a question, feel free to write it into the polls section. That way we can grab it for you and answer it for you. Sorry, go ahead, Nelson.
Yep. So the next question is about Thanksgiving travel. I think someone missed part of it in the beginning. Like Miguel said, there will be that break, and we do encourage students to, if they can, if possible, with their schoolwork, to stay at home, so to reduce again that travel. However, I just want to caveat, there are some programs and professional programs, if there's any like graduate student parents in the audience, they may require the student to come back. So I would ask that if you're not sure, if your student's not sure, to check in with their school or their academic advisor, just to be sure. But outside of that, those specific programs that need them to be in person in order to fulfill the coursework and whatnot, it's advised that the students stay at home to reduce travel. Do you have anything to add to that, Miguel?
No, I think that just about covers it. The full email of Provost Fleming's communication is on that digital handout.
Great. And someone asked, will the recording be available? Yes, we'll try to upload this as soon as we have it recorded and available. So hopefully next week, whenever the recording happens to
Yep,
be in
so
our
it
inbox.
should stay here on this platform, and then we'll have it permanently on that digital handout as well.
Yeah. So the next one, how will students be notified of their registration appointment? And then what do we mean by appointment to be determined by credits?
Okay, that's a great question. So students will be informed of their appointment on their Albert account. There's a section that says enrollment appointment. Right now it may be blank, but once we get closer to registration, students will be notified of when their registration opens up. And what we mean by appointments are determined by credits earned, essentially saying if you've earned more credits, your registration is earlier. So you'll oftentimes see folks that are nearing the end of their NYU education, they'll be able to register first because they might have necessary courses that they need to register for in order to graduate on time. That's essentially what that means.
Yeah. And then the next question, what is J-term?
What is JTEM?
Acronyms we have.
I know NYU and aren't acronyms, and I do apologize. I try to not always speak in our lingo, but sometimes it does slip. I've been here for quite a number of years. J-term is NYU's January term. It's an optional semester. It's really short. It's about 3 or so weeks that students can enroll in classes, usually 1 or 2 classes, and really kind of get caught up on some of the coursework. So think of it similar to like a summer class, summer term, but really, really condensed.
Yeah. And then the next question, I think it was from the same person, is how many students take J-term classes? I don't know if we have a specific number, but there are students that pursue it.
Yeah, we don't have a specific number, and I think we can maybe speak anecdotally from traffic in our in-person center when most classes are in person. There's less students on campus, let's just say that. But obviously now that most classes are offered remotely, great opportunity to really get caught up on those courses if need be.
Yeah, and I think that the J-term and sometimes in summer as well are really designed for students who maybe have 1 class, and instead of waiting till the spring and taking it in 14 weeks, they're like, you know what, I'm just going to buckle down and take that 1 class in 3 or 4 weeks and just graduate so that I can start a job. Maybe they have a job lined up, and that job requires you to have your degree by a certain date, right? Or guarantee that you said you're going to graduate by X. Then I need to show for you to show your diploma when you get it, or your transcript to say that you've completed all your coursework. So something like that. So that's why it's very important that we brought up, and Miguel kept saying it throughout the presentation, is to have that conversation with the student. Don't take it just to like, yeah, you know, fast. Yeah, it's fast, but it also is very intense. Think a regular semester is 14 weeks. You meet twice a week, 14 weeks. Now you're condensing all the things that you do in 14 weeks to about 3 weeks. So midterm is probably like, you know, 3 days later. So it's not, it sounds good, right? You're speeding up, you're taking less time, you're graduating faster in terms of time, but it can be difficult on the student if they're not, you know, prepared academically or mentally prepared to condense everything in a short period of time. The next question, this one's interesting. Thoughts on whether it is a good idea to buy the NYU sponsored health insurance?
Okay, that's a great question. So NYU does require all students to maintain health insurance. So if you have your own already and you're satisfied with it, keep it. If you want to, if you don't have your own health insurance, you will need to purchase NYU health insurance, which is automatically billed. Now, if you already have health insurance and you're considering maybe having your student use the NYU sponsored health insurance, take a look at the benefits that come with your current plan and the NYU plan to see if it's worth it for you. I can't really say one way or another because every family and every student is different.
Okay. The next question, is interest charged on the NYU deferred tuition payment plan?
Interest is not charged. That's a really great question. And you're reminding me of something that I meant to mention regarding both of those payment plans. There is no interest, but they do both have a $50 enrollment fee for the semester that you're enrolling in. So there's no interest, there's just that $50 enrollment fee. It's a one-time fee.
Okay. Is the FAFSA mandatory for someone to receive all 4 years of their NYU scholarship and they're not getting any federal or state aid?
So if I'm understanding correctly, the student is only receiving NYU scholarship aid, not federal or state aid, right?
Right.
Right. No. So if you don't want to be considered for federal aid, there's no need to complete the FAFSA. The NYU scholarship will automatically renew without the completion of either the FAFSA or a CSS profile.
I would add, if your student at any point though, wants to apply for any outside scholarship, sometimes those outside scholarship agencies, company, whoever's awarding those scholarships may require your student to apply for FAFSA or have information from FAFSA. So it doesn't hurt. I mean, I know it takes time and you need to sit down and actually do it, but otherwise it's a free application. So it's your choice, but you know, if at that point they have something they want to apply to outside scholarship and they need the FAFSA, you know, it's better to have it ready rather than like, oh, now scramble because there's a deadline or, you know, you don't know. So, yeah.
Just really quickly, Nelsa, just one caveat to what I said earlier. Certain students in opportunity programs will be required to complete their FAFSA for scholarship renewal, but they should be aware of this. And if for some reason they're unsure, they can always ask us. But for the majority of students, they will not need to complete their FAFSA.
Okay, and there was a follow about, you know, whether is there other reasons to fill out the FAFSA? So like outside scholarship would be another reason. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so what are the deadlines for applying for external scholarship in iGrad for 2021 to 2022 school year?
External scholarships, right?
Mhm. Yes.
There's really no set deadline, right? The different scholarship organizations set their own deadlines. And we see it often that there's deadlines running the entire academic year. So if you and your student find something that you want to apply for and you are able to obtain that scholarship, you can always apply it to NYU tuition at any point during the semester.
Okay. Do students need to fill out the CSS profile to be eligible for certain grants or scholarships?
So the CSS profile is only completed once at the time of application. So we don't really have any prospective student parents, or I don't think we do. So at this point, there would be really no need to complete the CSS profile. It's only done once, and that's at the time of application to the university to be reviewed for scholarship aid.
Okay. So this person writes, my student is a freshman and has a work study. Is there any opportunities for her to work during COVID? Where do they go for more information?
Yeah, great question. So if they've been awarded work study, they definitely want to reach out to our colleagues at the Wasserman Center for Career Development. Online, they have the Handshake portal that they can apply for on-campus jobs. Understandably, there are a number of reduced job availability, but there are still opportunities for students. So definitely check with our colleagues at Wasserman.
How can, oh wait, okay, how can we or my student find out more about understanding unsubsidized loans and paying off the interest during the term of the loan?
Yeah, great question. Studentaid.gov gives you some pretty comprehensive information about the terms of the loan. If you've already been assigned what is considered a loan servicer, so essentially a third-party company that manages repayment, reach out to them as well. They can offer you options for repayment and prepayment, stuff of that nature. And we're also a great resource as well if students are ever unsure of who their loan servicer is. We're more than happy to help them figure that out. That information is always available on studentaid.gov.
If you completed the CSS profile for your student, but have a second student applying to the school, I assume it means same school, NYU, do you need to complete it again?
Yes, we need a CSS profile for each individual student. Even if, you know, similar parental information, we look for individual students.
Okay. If students remain in town on campus for Thanksgiving, will meals be available?
So definitely, I would really recommend checking in with our colleagues at Dining Services. They will usually alter uh, dining availability during recess periods at NYU, but there generally will remain options for students. But again, check with dining services because I'm not entirely sure, and I don't want to give you misinformation. But generally, from previous experiences, that's been the case.
Mhm. So then when does spring term start? Does it overlap J term?
Does not overlap. Essentially, J term ends on a Friday. Spring will begin the following Monday. So there's been recent communication from senior leadership here at NYU with some alterations to the spring calendar. So if I'm not mistaken, and I can double check this for you, spring is set to begin January 28th.
Mhm. So is it possible that students pick up an NYU scholarship during enrollment years as opposed to only as an entering first year student? So I think what they're saying is, can they still get an NYU scholarship after the first year? If they didn't get it the first year when they enter, can they get it as a sophomore, et cetera?
Yeah, so unfortunately not. The university only reviews for scholarship at the time of admission. And this is really to help students and their families plan out what the next 4 or so years will look like at NYU. So unfortunately, we only do a scholarship review once at the time of application.
Okay. Does the Student Link, your office, Student Link, administer summer abroad programs? If yes, is summer abroad still currently scheduled for summer 2021?
Great question. So our office does not necessarily organize summer abroad or any of our abroad programs, but our counterparts at Global Programs does. At this point, things are, constantly changing and fluid. I would really suggest contacting our colleagues at Global Programs for any specific questions about summer sessions abroad. Those have been a little all over, not all over the place, a little in limbo due to obviously the ongoing pandemic. But they would be it would be global.programs@nyu.edu. Great place to reach out and discuss summer options.
Okay. If an error was on the first CSS profile that was filled out, can a new CSS profile be filled out?
I'm assuming the student is already currently enrolled. Unfortunately not. Those errors and those corrections would have needed to be made at the time of admission prior to matriculation.
I'd say that it was pointed out earlier in the presentation, though, right, you cannot be reconsidered for a scholarship. However, you can apply for the returning student, I forgot what it's called right now, or you returning undergraduate appeal. I had to translate the acronym. But it's not, you're not getting a scholarship in that amount by any stretch, but it's something to kind of supplement tuition. So that could be an option if students opt to apply for the returning undergraduate appeal, right?
Yep.
Will freshmen be able to opt out of the dining plan for the second semester?
I'm going to go with no. First year students need to maintain meal plans their entire first year at the university, if I'm not mistaken. Double check with our colleagues at Dining Services, but I'm rather certain that's the case.
Okay. So this is a scenario question. If I have two students in college at the same time, can I count on some help from NYU with the tuition? One student is at NYU and another at another institution.
Okay. Yeah, great question. That's why there's not a yes or no answer to that because every family is unique and their circumstances are different. So when you complete the CSS profile, it accounts for that, right? It'll ask how many folks are in the household, how many are attending college. So all of that information gets put into the CSS profile, which then we're able to our colleagues at the financial aid office are able to use to generate an award package.
In fact, both the CSS profile for NYU and the FAFSA form for federal aid takes into account, that's why they ask how many people in the household are going to college. So it does kind of take that into account.
Right.
I think that's all the questions.
And just
Do we
on
have
time.
one more with the contact information page, just so we
Yeah,
can
sure.
pull that one? I know some folks have asked, like, how do we contact? Or if you have very specific, I know there's some questions that were very specific to, you know, people's record or students' record. Unfortunately, we can't discuss that here. You can pull up anybody's record and start talking about them, but certainly encourage your students to either make a Zoom appointment with their counselor, send us an email through their, preferably their NYU email, so that we can discuss their record, or if they need to, come in person to a Manhattan or Brooklyn office.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I think that just about does it, right, Nelsa?
I'll sneak this one in.
All right, go for it.
Do we have to complete a new CSS form every year?
No.
Right.
Quick answer. Quick answer.
Right.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank
Hope
you.
you have a great rest of your evening and enjoy the rest of Alumni and Parents Weekend. Bye, everyone.